I recognize the senator from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm rise to join with my colleagues who are in support of Senator Kaine's, I think, thoughtful approach on how we put an end to this tariff war with Canada. And I got to tell you, one of the things about working with Tim Kaine for 40 years is he always keeps a hugely optimistic view of things. And boy, do I need a dose of Tim Kaine optimism today. Because we've seen in our national security domain reckless disregard for classified information, and no one so far held accountable. And the message that sends to our allies, to the men and women who work in our military or intelligence, because if they did the same behavior that the so-called Signal Gate, they'd be fired. Or need to Tim Kaine optimism today because the long-awaited Republican budget resolution adds $6 trillion to the deficit. $4 trillion in funny math and about another $2 trillion for tax cuts. So that then brings us to not my words, but Peter Navarro's words, who I happened to be with on a Sunday, says these group of tariffs will add $6 trillion in revenues. Who do you think is going to pay for that? Candidly, it's going to be the people who buy the presiding officer's cars in his great dealerships in Ohio. It's going to be folks in Virginia. We had one of our brewers in yesterday who's already laid off 20% of his staff because he imports malted Pilsner from Canada. What we're seeing with Trump is not America first, but what's going to be is America alone. And I say to anybody I spend way too much time in a skiff, I know, but America alone is not an America that's safer. And the notional idea that we've picked on our longest best friend in many ways. I'm a little biased. My mom's parents were from Canada. But the notion that this president is trying to turn Canada into an enemy is beyond belief. You know, I talked to a senior Canadian leader just the other day. And he said, Mark, you know, even if tomorrow Trump says, never mind, as he's gone back and forth a dozen times, say no harm, no foul, the damage we have done to the relationship between America and Canada will take years to recover. Senator Sheen just mentioned airplane flights down 75%. Americans' national anthem booed at hockey games. We had another person in who ships whiskey, Virginia bourbon, up to Canada. All the tariffs are off tomorrow, which they're not. It will be years, if ever, that Canadians will be buying American bourbon again. So, in dreamland, $6 trillion of tariffs, you know, it's the largest tax increase in American history. I believe it actually goes beyond World War I. And the so-called Liberation Day, the only thing that is liberating is this administration's liberating Americans from their savings because the market's down. They're liberating businesses from their supply chains because of so much disruption. And they're liberating consumers from their hard-earned money because this is going to translate into increased costs. This isn't partisan. This isn't Democrat, Republican. This is math. And no matter how much the president wants to strut on the South Lawn, and glad to see at least the South Lawn was being used for an announcement today as opposed to another day of a Tesla show lot, who's going to bear the brunt of this? It's going to be Americans. It's going to be Canadians. It's going to be people around the world. I'm sure my friend has already mentioned this, particularly from Virginia's standpoint. Canada is our second biggest trading partner in Virginia. Virginia businesses export approximately $3.3 billion worth of products to Canada. We import about $3.2 billion. Virginia farmers sell about $430 million of goods to Canada. A lot of Virginia peanuts go to Canada. They're not going to be going. That is going to hurt our economy. Matter of fact, in Virginia, 280,000 jobs in Virginia depend on trade and investment with Canada. I know as governor, I went. I know Senator Kaine, as governor, you went because Canada's one of our best partners. What would the reception be tomorrow if we showed up in Ottawa? This is not going to be just another economic policy. This is at the lifeblood of the Canadian economy, and combined with the so-called reciprocal tariffs around the world, it is the lifeblood of the American economy. So I know Senator Van Hollen's going to say a lot of the same things that I was going to say. I would just say to the presiding officer again, I know you sell great cars, but I'm not sure even folks in Ohio are going to be able to afford $2,000 or $5,000 more per car just because of ill-suited tariffs. So I hope that folks on both sides of the aisle will actually stand up for America first. Reject this misguided tariff strategy. Reject this demonization of Canada. Recognize that America first doesn't have to be America alone. The only thing that could make my day actually better at this point, beyond that little dose of Kaine optimism, if the Senate finally comes to its senses tonight, endorses Tim's resolution, and we put an end to this misguided economic policy. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President,